Tuesday afternoon, then we'll just have to deal with the cold as we work our way through the middle part of the week. So concerning pipes, shut off main or drip, if you can survive 3 days, 2.5 days without water, then shutting off water completely is going to be the best alternative. Otherwise, drip, and if you do drip, you want to drip both hot and cold. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. A lot of folks have been asking questions about the pipes over the last couple of days. This is expected to be just a snow event. At the very onset, there might be a little bit of sleet mixed in as we kind of get the temperatures to transition. But for the most part, this is going to be a snow event. Certainly not freezing rain. We do not expect any of that. So as far as icing on contact, we do not see that as an element that we need to be concerned about going into the evening and overnight hours. Here's a look at your satellite imagery. Over the last 6 hours, we started out with sunshine. As a matter of fact, some of the images we saw on our cameras this morning were absolutely spectacular as far as sunrises go, but it was a very cold start. Now you can see with the visible satellite imagery, the cloud covers just kind of hung on across southeast Texas, and we're seeing that now as we get into the late afternoon, starting to lose some of the visible images on the satellite imagery. Also up to the north, you can tell that the moisture is starting to increase a little bit with a few flakes or at least some echoes showing up on the Dallas radar this afternoon. So the other thing we'll continue to watch is what is down to our southwest, because that's where most of our moisture is going to come from with this event. And we've been seeing some light echoes on the Victoria and Corpus Christi radars throughout the course of the afternoon. That's something we'll continue to watch for you as we head throughout the day. So again, big picture, front came through on Saturday. From then we've continued to see the cold air filter to the south, and that cold air is going to continue for probably the next 2 or 3 days. High temperatures Tuesday and Wednesday will struggle to get above the freezing mark, and the overnight lows probably all the way through Friday morning could be right around freezing or less. And certainly Wednesday morning is going to be the coldest morning, where we expect to see temperatures in the low to mid teens across southeast Texas. So again, this is the coldest air mass by far that we will see this season so far, and likely probably for the entire season. So if you're a big fan of winter, this is your chance. Otherwise, we may hopefully, as a matter of fact, you'll see on the 7-day, we'll look at it, we may be back up to 70 by the early part of next week. So again, not a lot of specific questions so far. A lot of folks watching those, so we do thank you for that. Again, high pressure to the east, high pressure to the west, and what we're looking at is the base of that trough. That's where the energy is going to come from, as the energy rounds around Albuquerque and El Paso and works in that west flow that will head towards southeast Texas as we work our way through the afternoon and into the evening. We're going to look at 2 different levels. We're looking at first the mid-level moisture. This is moisture at about 10,000 feet off the ground, and then we're going to switch and go a little bit lower, and we'll take a look at the moisture values at about 3,000 feet. And there is a big difference, and that is one of the things that we're going to be looking at as far as the onset of snow here in southeast Texas. The first, you can see at 10,000 feet, even this afternoon, we're definitely starting to moisten up. This was not the case earlier this morning, but as we have seen the cloud cover increase, we've definitely seen the moisture pick up at this level. Again, this is at about 10,000 feet. And as we go through the afternoon and into the evening, we will see that going through 7 a.m., that moisture is still there in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. We also have a little bit of a boundary pushing south that is going to help to kind of squeeze out any moisture there in the form of snow. And again, as we look at the timeline for this event, we think that probably between 5 and 8 tomorrow morning is probably going to be the peak snowfall that we see across the area in terms of intensity, and also in terms of the scope and coverage that we see across southeast Texas. And then once we get past 7, things should slowly start to diminish. But there is a lot of moisture. And by the time we hit the early afternoon into the early evening, the moisture dries out, and we will see a clear and cold night Tuesday into Wednesday. There is no doubt about that. Here's where our fly is in the ointment, if you will. And this is when we switch to the 850 millibar layer, or about 3,000 feet off the surface off the surface. And what we are seeing here at 4 o'clock this afternoon, you notice we're down into the brown sections. That is a pretty dry low level, and what we need for that snow to, if we did have snow right now, it would probably be evaporating before it hit the ground because the lower levels are too dry. Just not seeing that at this point. So what we are going to watch for as we work our way through the afternoon into the evening is going to be this moisture that you see from Port Lavaca to San Antonio and southward, going to be working its way to the north. And as you work to 9 o'clock, you can see the lower levels starting to moisten up here across southeast Texas. And this is the time frame where we expect to see the chance of snow developing across southeast Texas. So again, this is something we're going to continue to watch. The other thing that we can see here, and I'm going to draw for you, what we're looking at is you can see kind of a boundary right in this area here. This is the mid-level or the low-level boundary that's there, and that is going to be the convergence zone. That's where most of the energy is going to be with this system at 9 o'clock this evening, and this is where I think we may see some of the heavier bands set up early this evening, say around 9, 10 o'clock tonight. So again, from Austin to Houston to Beaumont back over towards Lake Charles, that is going to be an area that we watch for snowfall development at about that 9 to 10 o'clock hour. So keep that in mind. As we work our way from 9 o'clock to midnight into the early morning hours, you can see that that moisture is certainly kind of hanging out across all of southeast Texas, pushing over into southwest Louisiana. But also notice, if you will, the boundary has worked its way closer to the coast. And you can see it there, basically, again, just south of Houston to Beaumont over to Abbeville. And that energy right along the coast means that we could possibly see some of the heaviest bands setting up across Chambers, southern Jefferson, possibly into Orange County, and then over into Cameron Parish into Louisiana. That is something that the models have kind of hinted at over the last day or so. And again, we're into what Greg called earlier a nowcasting mode, which is now we're not going to get another new set of models before we see the precipitation start to begin. So what we're going to be looking for is where some of this moisture starts to develop. And again, we think early this evening around 9 o'clock, it's going to be probably north of Beaumont. And then you get between 9 and say 3 a.m., it's going to shift a little further to the south, which is what we saw earlier in the models. We saw the snows starting to develop around the lakes and then kind of sag southward towards the coastline. And that is something that certainly appears to be playing out when you look at the low-level front or low-level boundary that is going to help to kind of kick off some of those showers. So as we continue through the morning, there's 7 a.m., we still see some moisture kind of hanging out. The boundary itself is pushed offshore. But again, I think we'll have enough moisture and energy in place on the backside of that boundary that we will still continue to see some snow, probably into the early afternoon hours. And then by the time we get to 3 o'clock, the lower levels completely dry out, and would not be surprised to see some sunshine moving into southeast Texas coming into the afternoon hours. Let's see here. Let's see here. Just a lot of questions on here, things that have already been answered. So we'll continue to kind of move on. Let's go ahead and take a look and see how things are shaping up now. We're going to move past the moisture, and this is kind of how it plays out. This is what we expect to see going from now into the early morning hours on Tuesday. And you can see the cloud cover is definitely there. We definitely have quite a bit of cloud cover across southeast Texas. Now the question is, what time do we see the snow developing across southeast Texas? By 7 o'clock, so we're still about 3 hours away from this, starting to see a little bit of moisture just offshore from Highland down to Crystal Beach. Then as we work our way to the 9 o'clock hour, there it is, kind of developing just as we saw on that 850 millibar, that 3,000 lower level moisture. You can see it really kind of corresponds to where the snow is setting up at 9 o'clock, from Kirbyville back to Wildwood to Batson over towards Cleveland and Livingston. So that snow is going to continue to develop as we work from 9 p.m. to eventually to midnight. Notice the boundary and the snow kind of sags south towards Interstate 10. And then by 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you see the snow kind of hanging out across all of southeast Texas, which we think will be the peak time for snow across the area, especially along and south of Interstate 10. I think that's where we think the heaviest snows at this point are going to set up. Once we move past 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, there's still some lingering snow showers around 9 o'clock in the morning, but you can already see things starting to wind down across the lakes. Highway 190 from DeRidder over towards Jasper and towards Woodville into Tyler, Jasper, and Newton counties. The snow is ending, and as we continue to move from 9 o'clock through early afternoon, the snow is gone. And as we talked about and we showed you, that moisture depletes in the lower levels, so we might actually see a little bit of sunshine as the cloud cover looks to erode across southeast Texas. Now, continuing from Tuesday into Tuesday night, the sky is completely clear. And what that means, we get into a thing called radiational cooling. And with radiational cooling, any clouds there would typically hold temperatures closer to the surface, keep those warmer temperatures locked in. But without cloud cover, any warm air, and in this case, even colder air, would escape. And that will allow the atmosphere to completely cool. So that is what we're looking at heading into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, which is why we expect to see those lows down into the teens across most of southeast Texas. We will show the day temps and the wind chills in just a second. Hang on, Kathy. Let's see here. Power outages, again, the question is, Is it possible to see a few power outages? Yes. Are we going to see power outages to the extent that we saw them last year with the ice storm or even into 2021? It doesn't look like it because we're not seeing the same type of precipitation that would facilitate a major power outage across southeast Texas. But again, be prepared for the worst because this is a winter storm. And as Greg talked about earlier, record snowfall 30.5 inches back in 1895. If we hit 4.6 inches of snow with this particular system, this would be the second highest snow total on record here in southeast Texas. So this isn't something that we see every day. So again, it'll just have to see how the infrastructure that's currently in place handles this system as it does develop across the area. Going from Tuesday night into Wednesday, we expect to see mostly sunny skies, but depending on how much snow we have and the snowpack, could depend on how warm we get on Wednesday. Right now, both Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to keep afternoon highs below freezing here in southeast Texas. So how much snow? That's the $1,000,000 question everybody wants to stick around and ask. So
that's why I'm getting gray hair, okay? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a question, and it's going to depend on where that snow band forms. I mean, if it does form offshore, we're probably going to see less than what we have forecast there.
And this, we'll see. Again, we talked about the bands setting up along and south of Interstate 10, and that's where we've got the highest concentration of snows right now in that 4 to 6 inch range, which is something we've talked about since early this morning. Up into the lakes, you can see that 1 to 3 inch range, Jasper down towards Buna. And again, like we said, we're going to watch it and see kind of how things are shaping up as far as the moisture and energy goes, and where it sets up across southeast Texas will ultimately determine who gets the highest snow totals as we work our way through the next 30 hours or so. So again, the onset, once this begins around 8, 9 o'clock, it's not impossible to see a few sleet pellets. But the bottom line is with this system is that we are expecting mostly snow. There is no doubt about that in our mind. The atmospheric column, the atmospheric profile just certainly lends itself to being an all snow event. So just good news. Some travel questions. Travel on Thursday. Early in the morning, it's going to be iffy because we're going to have some freeze and refreeze type of stuff as the snow continues to melt off a little bit. So travel Thursday morning is going to be a little bit on the dicey side, but by Thursday afternoon, we do anticipate temperatures getting back above freezing, and we should start to see some significant melting of what snow is left around at that point. So again, just kind of keep an eye on it. Once the sun does come out on Thursday, that's the good news too, is that Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday both, we expect to see plenty of sunshine here in southeast Texas. So kind of keep that in mind as well. Let's see. Keep up the good work. You guys are giving great information. We appreciate that. Thanks for all your comments. And again, once we get past the winter impacts going from Tuesday into Wednesday, the question is how fast do we warm up? And these are our afternoon forecast temperatures starting tomorrow going through Friday. And you can see that today, 39, we're going to fall just short of that. I think when it's all said and done, probably about 36, 37 is what we're seeing. I think Jack Brooks is actually reporting 38 right now. So we're going to be very close to that. But as you can see, Tuesday and Wednesday, it's going to be a struggle to get back to the freezing mark. And again, it's really going to depend on how much snow we have. The lesser snow we have, the better chance we have of getting above freezing, just because the what's the snowfall that we see kind of acts, as Greg called, like an igloo. It holds that warmer temperature down, and we get the sun reflecting off the snow, so it doesn't allow the ground to insulate, so we don't get quite as warm. Heading into Thursday and Friday, we start to see a little bit of a change in the air mass. Winds eventually start turning around to the south, and by Friday, we should see temperatures warm back up to 50. And by the time Friday's over, I would suspect that most of the snow will probably be melted across southeast Texas. That is the afternoon highs. What about overnight lows? Again, we're talking about the potential for 60 hours of sub-freezing temperatures here in southeast Texas, starting tonight and continuing through the next several days. And you can see the lows tonight expect to be down into the mid-20s. We clear the skies out Tuesday night into Wednesday, and that's going to drop our temperatures down into the teens. Any wind will create wind chills that will probably be down into the single digits Wednesday morning. And then temperatures will stay below freezing Thursday and Friday morning. So that's when we talk about the potential for a little bit of a refreeze. Melting snow leaves behind water on the streets and that type of thing. And that's where you can get some of that refreeze, causing some black ice issues, especially Thursday and Friday morning, coming off some melts from the previous days. Finally, Saturday, looks like things will stay above freezing, and that will be the case probably right on through the weekend. Again, by Sunday, we could see temperatures back up close to 70 degrees. So again, it's going to be a quick turnaround as far as temperatures go here in southeast Texas. Current look, again, that's Beaumont, and this is orange, and you can certainly see the cloud cover is there. So any hints of sunshine for today, probably gone for the rest of the afternoon. Now it's just a matter of waiting and seeing when the snow does develop across southeast Texas. Looking at one of my other computers here that you don't see, as a matter of fact, I'm going to bring up the camera, and I'm going to point to it. It's this computer right here that's kind of giving us an idea on the radar and maybe some of the moisture that's starting to develop.
I'm going to point out, we're seeing this on the Houston radar as well. There is some light snow beginning to fall up here around Lufkin. Now this is all evaporating coming down. It's not reaching the ground, but there is some very light precipitation beginning to show up around Jasper, just north there toward Lake Sam Rayburn. It's really, yeah, I can see a little bit better on that radar.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this back up for you guys so you can see what we're talking about here. And again, I'm gonna bring up the closest radar so we don't have so many sweeps going across.
Yeah, Fort Polk probably the best.
And we're gonna slide up to Fort Polk, and this is what Greg is talking about right here. As let's see, pallets. There we go. Bring up the yellow. Yeah. Right in here, this is what we're talking about, where we're starting to see some echoes showing up. But again, this is elevated off the surface.
Yeah,
and as Greg said, from
probably about 5,000 or 6,000 feet up.
Yeah, and so this is basically evaporating before it hits the ground because, as we talked about earlier, low-level moisture is not quite there yet. But this is a good sign if you are a snow fan, because this is a sign that the atmosphere is starting to moisten just a little bit, and eventually this does work down to the surface as we continue throughout the evening. So right now I'd say the forecast looks about as good as confidence-wise as it has in quite some time. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, the question is where the heaviest band of snow strikes. You just don't know. I mean, quite honestly, we're just being as honest as we can be. We have to wait for later this evening to see where those radar bands set up.
And we're seeing some of the kind of same thing go over to Houston, and we're seeing a
little bit out toward East Bernard,
back towards Wharton, El Campo, that area too. So again, this is going to be a slow process. Again, we're just now at 4:21 in the afternoon, so we still have about 5 hours to go to hit that 9 o'clock mark that we've kind of talked about over the last couple of days. But
even seeing a few streaks there right around Beaumont.
Yeah, right there along Interstate 10 there, getting towards the edge.
Very light.
And that's the very edge of the Lake Charles radar. So that's way up there, about 8,000 to 10,000 feet probably as far as where that moisture is. So the good news is, if you're a snow fan, we're starting to see the moisture kind of pick up a little bit across southeast Texas. And that is certainly some good news. If you're not a snow fan, well, you're just going to have to deal with it, I guess, for another 24 to 36 hours. There's not much we can do at this point. Travel concerns, again, airports, Houston, Hobby, and Bush Intercontinental are closed tomorrow. So if you have travel plans there, you might want to check with the airline, see if there's something they can do there. Roadways, we've been talking with the emergency managers, just no timeline yet on if and when the bridges will close. But if the forecast holds true, we do believe that the bridges will become an issue late tonight into early Tuesday morning. So again, if you do have to travel back and forth, maybe from Orange into Jefferson County, drivetexas.org is going to be the website you want to go to check on the current road conditions and current bridge closings across southeast Texas. Getting a report from Marlin, Rayburn is starting to get a few pellets, and that is definitely possible because, again, what we're talking about when we talk with sleet, it's frozen up above. There's a little bit of a warm nose where that drier air might be, and then it's kind of refreezing before it gets to the ground. So that may be the beginning of a little bit of sleet there in Sam Rayburn, which kind of corresponds with what we're seeing on radar.
Yeah.
So again, good news there. Yvonne says it's sleeting pretty good near her house at Rayburn right now. Let's bring up the Rayburn camera and see if we can see
it on the, because we've got that pond there. Might see it.
All right. So I'm going to bring up the camera. Give me just a second. There's Rayburn. And I think maybe I'm seeing a little bit bouncing there.
I see some things going by. Yeah, there's a little bit of sleet begin to fall up at Lake Sam Rayburn.
Yep. Yes. So again, thanks for the reports, guys. Always good to get a ground truth to some of this stuff that we're seeing. Aaron Fuller Aaron is asking if it's going to be enough of a snow to where it sticks to make a snowman. If we get 4 to 6 inches, you could probably make a small snowman for sure, maybe even a moderate size one, because again, there's going to be a lot of moisture with this, so it's going to be able to congeal and you'll be able to make a good snowball if nothing else. Is Wednesday morning driving going to be as bad as Tuesday? Actually, we think it's probably going to be worse, just because what is there is going to have a chance to freeze with that hard freeze and that very cold temperatures that we see Wednesday morning. So Wednesday does not look to be any better, if not worse, than Tuesday. So again, some good stuff there. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for the comments. Let me see if I can go one more, get to some of the current temperatures that we're seeing out there right now across southeast Texas. Let me slide the maps. Let's go back to Orangefield, hit a couple of our WeatherNet stations. I'm going to actually pop in Rayburn there as well and see what we've got, maybe Brooklyn as well. Give me just a second here as we do that. I'm going to bring the camera back up so you can kind of see Greg and I working here in the background. We always like people looking over our shoulders, so
Sure.
that's okay. Let's see here. I said Rayburn, right? Rayburn. Let's pop Rayburn in there.
See what they got on the temperature.
And then let's check Brooklyn. We'll pop that in there instead of Orangefield.
Yep.
All right. So now we're going to bring up the computer again. All right. So this is Rayburn. This is the WeatherNet station right there beside the lake. Of course, not going to pick up the rate at this point, but definitely a temperature 37 degrees. So it's just above freezing. Northeast winds at 3 miles an hour. Relative humidity still pretty low overall at about 37%. We'd really like to see that humidity pick up a bit to get some of that moisture to kind of turn over to snow up into the lakes area. And we'll make a stop and we'll head over to Brooklyn. This is just a little bit north of there. They're also at 37 degrees with a dew point of 13. That's not very exciting. Humidity at 38%, but nonetheless, we have on our camera, we saw a little bit of sleet, getting some reports of sleet from our folks up in Rayburn. So again, thank you for those reports from Yvonne and from Marlon as well. Let's see here. Nathan asked, would you think there would be a threat of black ice tomorrow night and maybe again on Wednesday night? Yes, that is the main icing concerns that we think we will have across the area is going to be from black ice due to some of the, late tomorrow afternoon, we'll get a little bit of sunshine that may allow a little bit of that snow to kind of melt just a little bit. And when it melts, it's going to kind of sit in the streets. Then the temperatures stay below freezing, and that's a possibility that it does refreeze and create some of that black ice you were talking about. So again, just be on the lookout for that. Again, travel concerns. TxDOT has said that if you don't have to get out, do not get out during the course of the day. Tuesday, it's probably just going to be too nasty across southeast Texas for that, especially if you're not an experienced driver in winter weather. It is a whole different beast for sure. I can attest to that. Kids want to know how much to expect here in Wildwood. Wildwood, you're going to be probably on that 2 to 3 inch range, I would guess. Yeah. Again, you're going to be just a little too far north of the main line, but 2 to 3 inches is something that we would expect to see up into that Wildwood area. So there you go, Michelle. Hopefully your kids enjoy that. And let's see here. A lot of folks asking if they want to build a snowman, I'm sure, and getting the popcorn ready. So popcorn would be good, wouldn't it, Greg?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So at this point, I'm going to bring the camera back up, ask Greg if he's got any final words. Of course, he's going to be on in about 30 minutes on KFDM at 5 o'clock. So Greg, any final words before we sign off?
Well, it's just, again, we have to wait till later on tonight to see where the snow band's set up, but it is a little bit promising that we are starting to see some precipitation fall, even though the air is very dry.
Very dry. Yeah.
But it'll take a while for it to, pick up in intensity. But I would think after 10 o'clock tonight, we'll see a good increase in it. And emphasize, we are expecting snow.
Yes.
I mean, the question is how much?
Yeah.
And it's always that way, isn't it? With snow, how much?
Even in South Dakota, the big question was how much? Do you get 2 inches? Do you get 12 inches? Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's not a concern here, but it's the same type of thing. It just depends on where the low sets up, where the band sets up. I remember one storm we forecasted on Palm Sunday back in 2010, I think it was. We forecasted like almost a foot of snow, and we missed by 20 miles. And 20 miles, they had 12 to 14 inches. Yeah. I had 1.5 inches.
There you go.
So that's kind of the fine line you're dealing with.
Weird how it works out sometimes.
Winter precipitation. So again, at this point, we're going to sign off on Facebook Live. Greg's going to continue to get ready for the 5 o'clock show on KFDM, 6 o'clock on KFDM, 5:30 on Fox 4. And again, probably between the 6 and the 9, we'll probably do another Facebook Live, maybe around 7:30 or so, kind of give folks an idea, maybe update.
And I think we'll see more echoes, obviously, on radar. We'll have more activity to show you.
Exactly. So all of that to come tonight. And of course, we'll be with you throughout the evening, walking you through, maybe take you outside for a little snow if it does develop later on this evening. So again, until then, have a great afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you at 5 o'clock on KFDM.